Early days, they tried better below the ground, but every time a rainstorm would come around, the caskets would float back to the surface.
Oh, wow.
So we had to adapt this mode of burial from Spain and the West Indies. Now, in the cemetery, we have several different types of tombs. The most popular are the family tombs. Those are the ones you see over to your right with the crosses and the statues on top. Those are the individual family tombs. Now, we also have what's called a society tomb, where any society of people can get together and purchase a tomb, like the firemen, the policemen, priests, nuns, or any organization. And they and their families can be buried in that particular tomb. And then along the wall of the cemetery, we have the wall vaults. Now, the way the burial system works, for instance, in a family tomb, when you open the front of it, there are two shelves. You have a top shelf and a bottom shelf. Some family tombs have as many as 3 or 4 shelves in them. Now, when family member number 1 dies, he's placed on the top shelf. Family member number 2 dies, he's placed on the bottom shelf. When the third member of the family dies, they reopen the front of the family tomb and they take out whatever is remaining of the casket of family member number 1 and destroy it. But the remains of the body stay in the tomb. They push them to the back of the shelf while they fall off the end into that hole at the bottom. Now the top shelf is ready for another burial. And this is carried on generation after generation. It's still used like this today. But there's an ordinance in the city that you have to wait at least a year and a day before you can carry out this process. So if the third member of the family dies before a year and a day had gone by since that first member, he is then placed in an area in the back of the cemetery which are called holding vaults. Until that year and a day had gone by, then his remains are transferred into his family tomb. And that's how it's done. Now, it gets up to about 180 degrees. And we usually bury some type of wood casket, like pine or oak. The only time they use a big steel casket is when they plan on leaving the seal for a long time. But on the front of each tomb, there's a plaque. And on that plaque are the names of each person who is buried in that particular tomb. And as you see when you walk out, some of those plaques have as many as 15 to 20 names on them. Now, the number one question that people ask about the cemeteries is the cost of the family tombs. Now, as you're going to see, some of those tombs are very expensive. But you get a nice family tomb today for about $20,000 or $25,000. It all depends on how much you want to spend. But the only person with that expense is the original family member who buys the tomb, because the deeds to the family tombs are passed down generation after generation. Some of those tombs have been in the same family for many, many years. The oldest cemetery is right outside the French Quarter.